Just as a quick overview, remember that addiction is what happens when we're living in the current. When we're escaping pain, consciously or not, we automatically crave something pleasurable to escape the pain. And whenever we feel that craving and follow through with it, that's addiction. Every time the current happens and we can't tolerate that craving to escape, we're suffering addiction. Today, we'll identify your addictive habits and look at how severe it is and what it's done to your life. You might have noticed that this module on addiction isn't the longest one. That's because addiction isn't about the end result of how much or how often you do it. It's about controlling the pain underneath it and having several ways of becoming healthy enough that addiction isn't even the focus. That doesn't mean we don't take addictive behaviors very seriously. It just means we focus on areas that help transform us the most. Even though pain is the first step of the current, we can't start with it because that's usually the hardest part of the current to fix. We're starting with the addiction part of the current because that's where your life is right now. You're probably still addicted or haven't been clean for very long and need some immediate tools to slow the current down, however you can. This process is meant to be fun. It's a fun journey, not so hard that you give up. Some people might be ready to jump into the most difficult challenges, and other people may be hanging on for dear life right now. Either way, everyone should first develop some healthier ways of handling the addiction part of the current. We'll be going over some ways to slow the damage down in this part of the current. We'll start with a quick exercise below to get a sense of what your addiction is and how severe it's become. Now let's start thinking about the future. If this was all logical, it would be so easy and quick. Unfortunately, our minds don't work on logic alone. Let's stop now to look at the part of you that doesn't want to do this. We need to learn from that part of you. If you don't listen to what parts of your mind get in your own way, then it's going to make it hard to know why you can't move forward. This section is meant to help encourage you to reflect more fully on what gets in the way of your change. This will help you recognize what you're doing that might be helping you already, and also help you notice what kinds of barriers are getting in your way. This program and the whole journey to transform is hard. Even for someone who's healthy and sober, to challenge themselves in several areas is hard. We already went over how to set this program up to be successful. One of those things was to think about extra tasks and stressors it would be fine if you put on hold or even stop. I want you to check in with yourself already and see if you did that yet. If you're in the middle of reading several books or trying to get through a whole season of a show, have you put that on hold? If you're about to start or already doing a project that can wait, trying to plan a trip, about to start longer hours at work, have you let people know that those things need to go on hold while you're doing this program? It's okay if you haven't. Remember, this is all for you. You don't get evaluated by anyone, and I wouldn't get upset even if I was watching you. It's normal for the child in you to think that you're so smart and dedicated that you don't need to do those things. And it's normal for the parent or the critic in you to say, oh, only weak people need to do that stuff. If you're strong enough, you should be able to do this, even with all the other hard things going on in your life. Pay attention to your tendency and pay attention to those voices. Why is this so important? Because it's a good start to practicing some basic skills. It's time to practice the art of prioritizing and planning so you have the best chance to keep yourself healthy. It's also time to start to listen to the voices that come up when you try to get something done. It's not just right now that you need to do this. There'll be many times in your life that you'll need to prioritize and plan and then listen to what those voices say. This sometimes means noticing if there's a distracting relationship or deciding if there's any personal conflicts that can be wrapped up. If something needs to wait to be addressed until much later, make sure the right people understand that they'll have to wait. This isn't necessarily an escape from the problems in relationships. What you'll probably find is that if you come back to the personal issues after you've worked on your own emotional health, you'll see the conflicts and issues in a whole new light and respond in different ways. This is a type of healthy avoidance, not distraction for the sake of distraction, but for the sake of health. First, transfer your addiction to something healthier for the time being. Sure, finding another addiction isn't the healthiest thing you can do, but that's where a lot of people get stuck. It's typical in addiction to have an all or nothing mindset where you're either addicted or you're trying to do everything right all the time. Changes don't happen that way. We need to slowly move into fuller health, not jump into it all at once. Transferring your addiction to a safer one is about finding a safer holding ground so that you can still be in the current, but in a safer part of the current. Here, you're still moving from pain to pleasure, but picking the safest part of the current, since getting out of it is too hard right now. It's time to go around the big rocks, around the rapids, so that you can start to catch your breath. Some examples of things you can transfer your addiction to right now are things like internet surfing, exercise, unless you've ever had an eating disorder, video games on a TV or app or computer, chocolate, collecting anything you used to like as a kid, shopping, as long as you limit spending to an affordable amount, and gambling or fantasy sports, as long as you can limit it to fake money. I know I told you to clear your life from distractions like TV and internet, but don't be all or nothing about this. If you can transfer your addiction from heroin or alcohol to binge watching the latest Netflix hit, I'm okay with that. We're not looking for immediate perfection. Be kind to yourself. Allow a transition without guilt or perfection. Work with your current dopamine system for now. To run through an example, one patient of mine started going to the gym to get away from certain pains. He was going there so he could unload anger and also try to lose some weight so he could have more sex. Did I stop him because his reasons weren't pure? No way. Those might not be the best reasons to go to the gym, but it's a healthier part of the current than where he was with addiction. Working out, for whatever reason, beats needles any day. Think of it as navigating to the best part of the current that you can, while you're still being taken downstream. Only over time can we go to the gym more purely for the health and fitness, and not so we can be noticed or watch other people who look really good while we're there. He did well because he didn't beat himself up for going to the gym for anger and sex. He knew it was just a temporary step he needed to take for a while. Be mindful of this progression, but be kind to yourself and allow it. After a while, you just might find yourself on the river's edge where you can easily climb out. We all need to progress through many layers of poor health to finally get to the best version of ourselves. First, we'll go over a handful of grounding techniques that try to capture our senses as strongly as possible. These are all things you can do either in public, or if you need some privacy, go to an empty hall or bathroom or car. If you've ever been sneaky enough to hide your addiction, you can be sneaky enough to find somewhere to practice these too. The first is touch. Our sense of touch takes up a huge part of our brain, and it's a great way to stop a bad pattern going on in your mind. The inside of our arms have a huge number of receptors. Try gently stroking your own arm, just like you would if it was a mate doing it for you or someone else you love. Just like that. You can also do this with your eyebrow. And if you're with an animal or your own child, you can pet them. Or if you're with someone you love and it's appropriate, ask them to caress or hold you. Other ideas for our sense of touch are things like showering, or even a quicker and easier thing is running warm water over your hands. The next method is using a scent, like an oil or a lotion. Our sense of smell is really powerful because the part of our brain that's used for smell sits right next to the part of our brain that feels emotion. Animals need a good sense of smell since they use it for such basic things like smelling the danger of a predator, smelling hormones from potential mates, and to know what foods are good or bad to eat. That's why for most people, they remember smells better than when they saw or heard something. You can get a small bottle of oil from special shops or even grocery stores. Test out a few samples so you can find a scent that's the most calming for you. I recommend something small enough that you can take it around with you. Then you can either open it up or just smell it from the bottle. And you can put a dab on your wrist, neck, or anywhere. Slow your breath down when you take it in too. The next trick is using a candle. Don't do this if you use lighters or flames to use drugs and you know that it's going to trigger you. But if that's not an issue, you can light it and take in the calming nature of a flame. Flames are nice because they're unpredictable with a nice ebb and flow of flame that makes it mesmerizing. Fire tends to really capture our attention. It can also help force you to be still for a little while if you use a small candle and watch it till it burns out. You could also use a lighter if you want it to be extra portable and quick. Walking is the next grounding technique. You can get up and either walk around inside, or I prefer getting outside if you can. And when you do walk, notice every part of your body as it moves. Your toes and feet touching the ground, your calves as they push off the ground, your hips as they slide back and forth with each step. Notice your breath and your shoulders and arms as they swing in rhythm with your feet. You can even dance or jump and see how that changes your body. Feel the impact with the ground and notice how your body senses that. The next one is taking in your surroundings. You can do this by observing your surroundings wherever you are and notice everything about what you're looking at, like the colors, textures, and follow the movements of anything that can move. Pretend you're looking at objects like it's the first time you've seen it. Try to notice things you never have before. Touch things. Are they smooth or soft? Look at how colors change with shadows or the shade. Listen to any sounds. If you're inside, see how many sounds you can hear. Is the AC on? Can you hear cars outside? Can you hear the hum or sounds of a machine like a fridge, washer, or other appliances? Is the TV on? Can you hear a pet breathing? Is there a clock to hear or watch? And if you're outside, watch the leaves as they rustle, the branches as they sway, and follow the branch towards the center of the tree. Can you notice how far down the trunk you need to look until it's not swaying anymore? Look carefully at any flowers. Even rub a petal in your hands, feel the moisture, and smell it. Notice anything. The sidewalk cracks, the rocks in the concrete. Get down and look at the grass. Watch for bugs. Notice anything in there. Find a bird or a squirrel and follow it around. Watch a cloud and notice how it changes its shape. It's really endless what you can notice in your surroundings to keep your mind occupied and off of addiction for a little while. Imagination can also be a good interrupter, but I don't find it works quite as well as the other ones do. The nice thing about it is how you can really go anywhere in your mind, but the downside is if you're already stuck in your head, it's hard to use your head to get out. You can practice using imagination by sort of daydreaming about anything not related to your addiction. That could be scenery where you imagine walking through anywhere you want and noticing everything you possibly can. And that would be similar to like we talked about where you do in real life with a walk. You can also get creative and fly or walk through walls into any room you dreamed of getting into. You could also stop and listen to conversations you imagine people having. Let your mind go anywhere that it's going to be entertained enough that you forget about addiction for just a little while. Music is another one. I suggest having several songs or even an album on standby that'll match what you think you'll want to hear. Maybe something soft for times you feel slow, and also some faster or even louder ones for when you feel fast or feel like screaming. Don't pick music that you always listen to with your addiction, or else that might just trigger you. Use music that's inspirational or reminds you of happy and pleasant times. Try to notice the lyrics. Try to pick out all the instruments being played. Imagine the people playing them. And notice how you feel as you hear it. Notice everything. Ice. Ice is a very strong one. You can simply watch ice melt and be forced to be still for a minute, just like with the flame. But if you need a really strong sensation, you can hold it. This can also be a good one if you tend to self-harm with burning or cutting yourself, since it still hurts, but doesn't actually harm you if you only hold it briefly. If you squeeze it in your hand, you'll be sure it'll get all your attention. It's good to use if you really need to do something physical or have loss of energy you don't know what to do with. Some people use salt or other things with it. Please never do that. That can really hurt you and cause serious wounds or infection. I'm okay with the idea of seeking out the pain of something cold, but not okay with actually causing damage to your body. You deserve better than that. Keeping objects in your pocket is another good one, especially to reconnect with your values or memories whenever you want. You can use anything that's portable and helps you capture senses, or also objects that have nice memories and comfort to you. Things like a rock, jewelry, baseball card, a toy, picture, a seed, a bag of soil from a special place. Get creative. If you're the type of person that stops to think before you carry through with your addiction, this is a great one to help you draw on your values and make good choices. With any of these, don't only try to use these tricks when you're already really overwhelmed. The more you can practice and the better you get at these exercises in calm and relaxed times, the quicker and better you'll be able to use them when it's addiction time. The critical part of any of these is to imagine you're soothing yourself. Notice that the nurturing and calming and caring part of you, even if it's just 1% of you in that moment, is soothing the rest of you, which is the painful and overwhelmed part of you. Notice how you care about yourself. and how you're your own guardian, protector, and caretaker. Be with that part of you as you soothe. It's not me or a doctor or a medication or friend doing it. It's you caring for yourself. This is self-care, which is really self-love and self-acceptance. Over time, this can transform your own ability to self-soothe and give you confidence in your own ability to carry through with your own resilience. So don't imagine some other thing or other trick that's supposed to fix the all of me that hurts. Instead, think of this as the caring part of you helping the other distressed part of you. This also quite literally builds new pathways for self-soothing that interrupt old cycles of bad thoughts and feelings. Some people say, I've tried that, it doesn't work for me, and that won't do the trick. But this is just not understanding the full science, and they sell themselves short. This does work every time. You just need to practice it like anything. If you only practice the senses exercise when you're already really overwhelmed, you're not giving yourself a good chance. You wouldn't expect to get good at basketball free throws if you only shoot them when the game is on the line. You'd practice hundreds of times before, so that when the game is on the line, you're ready. I've had several patients say this stuff doesn't work for them, but every time they go back and take the time to practice it enough, they all realize it's a huge help and that they just hadn't really stuck with it. You're laying down new nerve fibers every time you do it. You can be guaranteed that laying down stronger, calming connections in your brain is happening every time you do this. There's no question about it. It's not some people, it's all people, since that's the science of how new nerve fiber pathways are formed, which is always happening. Repetition will 100% change the brain, and it happens sooner with more focused practice. Keep this up, and you'll be rewarded later. Next, rally as many people in your corner as you possibly can, from different parts of your life with different types of connections and skills. Now's the time you want to draw on any good relationships you have. They don't need to all be very close or the most trusted people, because everyone you involve can have a different role to you. Someone who can help you stay busy doesn't need to be the same person you talk to about deep things in life. You'll be working on every part of you in this program, so the more people you have in the more areas of your life to lean on, the better. Know that your odds of success only go up with each extra person you have to help you. So this is the time to get as much support as you can. Expect tough spots or even relapses, and be ready to use your supports to quickly correct you. That's something you can do well after this program, even your whole life. Everyone who's a part of beating addiction with you might become a part of your belonging well after you're healthy and sober. For now, you should focus on how to use your supports while you push yourself through tough changes and challenges. Each person will draw out a different part of you and they'll pull a different part of who you are out while you're working on this. They'll each help with different challenges, different accountabilities, and have different responses to you. Some people will be sympathetic, and some people might be harsh and blunt. That's okay. They all have a purpose to you. The people you know who are overly accepting might help you feel worthy, while the people who call you out on your mistakes and lies will keep you on track and accountable. Learn from everyone. I see people make two very common mistakes in how they think about relapse. The two mistakes are, one, they think they won't ever relapse because they're too strong to, and two, they think relapse means they've failed. If we think we're too good to relapse, then we're probably not going to do quite as much as we really need to do to stay sober, and are actually more likely to relapse. If you think that relapse is a failure, know that most people relapse in the first year that they're trying this, let alone at any point later. While I'd like to have faith in every one of you to stop for good, we also have to be understanding of human nature and allow for the reality that lots of you will relapse. Relapsing is a normal and expected part of the struggle with addiction. It's far from a failure. People relapse in their addiction at about the same rate as relapses with other chronic conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, and asthma. If someone who's been treated for asthma has another asthma attack, would you call them a failure? No way. You'd understand that several things can happen to cause that, like forgetting to take a medication or not realizing a certain allergen is causing it to worsen. What makes you think that addiction is so special, so different? Just like with anything, there are so many variables and hurdles. You can never guarantee sobriety, nor can you guarantee someone will relapse. Life happens. We don't want to wait until we've relapsed to begin planning for what to do next. As with anything, the more you've rehearsed and planned ahead, the more successful you're going to be in interrupting any relapse and getting back on track, which is just fine. If you're still actively addicted right now, please still go through with this exercise. It'll still be able to help you now and in the future. This next task will walk you through all the ways you can help yourself plan to avoid a relapse. You'll need to think about so many parts of you and so many parts of life and what leads to your addiction and what thoughts and behaviors come before it. What I mean by this are things like how to remove or avoid triggers, how to leave certain situations, use people in your life to help you, knowing how assertive you are, knowing who you can trust, and so on. It's okay if you don't know how to have tough conversations to explain your new behavior. Friends can sometimes help with that. You can't do this whole thing alone, and this is a great time to use your help. 20% of relapses are because of social pressure. If there's a wedding that might trigger you because of alcohol or family issues, you need to start thinking about how you're going to manage that way before you're there and craving alcohol. For right now, you need a plan for how to either avoid triggers and pressures or how you're going to get through them in the safest ways possible. You'll need to think about 2 types of triggers. For each question, ask yourself, 1, what typically triggers your pain and distress? And 2, what typically causes too much excitement or pressure to use? You'll notice that these are opposite types of triggers. One is a trigger of bad feelings that cause us to escape by using, and the other one is a trigger of good feelings, too much excitement that can't get turned down. We're just too excited to use. Consider having some plans in your back pocket for tough situations that you can take care of ahead of time. For example, if you already anticipate awkward or difficult situations where you stopped hanging out with someone who's a bad influence, you might already know that you're going to have a hard time explaining why you stopped hanging out. In that case, you could consider having a mutual friend help to explain that for you, or even save a draft email and send that to people that's already thought out and explains your situation for why you can't keep hanging out. This task will have you think through every type of trigger so that you can always be one step ahead of your future self. This is a long exercise, and it's long because I want you to deeply understand all the factors affecting you. I don't want you to get knocked down by surprises. I've worked with people who do a great job of working on their own health, but haven't thought about all their triggers. I've seen a lot of short lists of triggers that leave people unprepared. What happens is they can get strong on their own, but at some point, a trigger takes them by surprise and they relapse. As you make a complete list of triggers, you'll start to become aware of what you're already doing that might be helping or hurting your chances. You'll see that the exercise leads you through several different stages of a relapse. First, you're going to plan for triggers well before a relapse. After that, you're going to come up with a list of what to do if you're in the middle of a relapse. And last, you'll go over a list of what to do after a relapse. You wouldn't want to figure out a fire escape after you're caught in the smoke of a real fire. Plan now so if it happens, you know just what to do. The next lesson is something I'd like you to watch with someone close to you, so that you can learn what we hope to get from them, but also so you can know what's fair to expect of that friend or family member. This is also a good time to share more about what you're going through as a person and update them on your journey so far. I hope this leads to useful conversation. Please do this when everyone watching is calm and not rushed or already arguing. I'll be speaking as if I'm addressing your friend or family in the next lesson. Please prepare for the next lesson by thinking about who you'd like to watch it with and find a good time to invite them to watch it. If you can't arrange a good time and they don't seem interested, or you don't have anyone at all to share this with, then go ahead and do the next lesson on your own. I don't want you to wait to move on in the program. You can always come back to it if that changes later. Hi, I'm Dr. Hochman. I'm a psychiatrist and I'm helping your friend or family go through this program. Thanks for taking a moment to join us. I've asked them to include you for this lesson because we all usually need help from the outside, from outside of ourselves, to get better. The goal of this isn't to ask you to do favors for them. It's to help them understand how their addiction affects close people. I also want to go over some concepts that can make your life easier, so I'll briefly go over some of the key approaches that can help at this time. I hope you find them helpful. The first is to be supportive. The best approach to your friend or family currently struggling with addiction is to accept them as they are. They're turning to you and showing you this because they think you're a support, which means that they find something in you that they depend on. This may be the last thing you feel like doing because you're probably very frustrated with their addiction and their failed efforts to stop it. This is understandable, especially if you've been hurt several times and feel like they've been irresponsible. How could you not feel some resentment? The problem is that being fed up and frustrated usually doesn't help, or else it probably would have already helped. It tends to increase guilt and shame and self-blame. Right now, the best thing you can do is simply express love, warmth, compassion, and understanding. Acceptance and love does not mean you need to forgive or condone certain actions, but rather that you accept their existence as a person and understand their circumstances in life. That's your only job right now. It doesn't take your time or money. The second key is to voice yourself from a loving place. If you remain resentful or confused, feel free to calmly express that, but from a warm place of care or concern. You're welcome to explain difficulties with the addict if it comes from a loving place. There's no need to hide anything. If you're angry, feel free to express that. Tell them that their actions make you angry, but also please find the compassion to still let them know that you accept them as a person. Any messages that are felt to come from a place of compassion are always going to be heard much better than anything that feels like an attack. Even very tough messages can still be delivered with kindness. The third key is to create boundaries. You can even maintain or create boundaries while still showing your concern, compassion, or love. While I do suggest an approach of understanding and acceptance, both of you need to recognize that the responsibility to change is with the person who's addicted and nobody else. It doesn't matter who's to blame or who owes who what. If someone trips me and I scrape my leg up, it may be clearly their fault, but it just became my problem. They can help me get up and clean me up, but ultimately I have to take that responsibility. Now's a good time to let the addict know what you will and will not tolerate, so that it's clear from now on and they know what to expect. The fourth key is trust that the addict wants to stop, even more than you do. Recognize that even most of the time you want that person to change, that only harms the relationship, since the underlying message they probably hear is, I'm right and you're wrong. If you can bring yourself to use a tone of curiosity towards the person struggling, you'll probably connect much more directly around the issue. That might sound something like, I know you want more for yourself, and it's very hard for me to watch. Is there anything I can do that will realistically help you right now? That can either be a request for a reasonable favor, or it might just be that they want to hear your support and that you care about them. That tone is instead of something like, why can't you just change already? I can't do anything more for you, and when I do, you mess it up anyway. Trust that the addict is usually far more frustrated with themselves than you might imagine, and usually more frustrated than you are. So using frustration as a motivator usually only causes more shame and difficulty in changing. We learn and change best when there's some pressure, but not so much that the pressure is overwhelming. The fifth key is only help or guide them if they ask, and you want to. It's okay to offer guidance if you've asked, but it's not helpful to make demands and explain your difficulties from their addiction just to make a point or try to get back at them. One way to do this is to try to acknowledge why they may have become addicted in the first place. When we simply respond and help when asked, it's usually way more productive and relieves some of the angst on both sides. If we offer unsolicited help, it can interrupt an addict's growth since they need to learn so much for themselves. Nobody learns to ride a bike from listening and watching. We need to just fall a bunch of times till we get it. So much of life is like that. It can be hard to watch a loved one fall over and over, but use good discretion on whether watching their failures is part of growth or outright dangerous. Consider asking friends what they think about watching certain kinds of failures and whether it makes sense to jump in or not. The other benefit to this is that it empowers the addict while also relieving a lot of the energy you're probably spending on helping. They get to grow more while you get to spend less time and energy on them. So practicing this can really be a win-win and take some tension off of the relationship. The sixth and last key is to reflect on your tolerance. This is also a good time to examine yourself and ask why you tolerate the harms from an addict. It may be because of your love and concern, but it can also be because of your own guilt or your own insecurities or a compulsion to fix people or be right. Acknowledge that the addict is not trying to hurt you. Your frustration, anger, and impatience with the addict is your problem, just as their use and addiction is their problem. It's always easier to focus on fixing others than ourselves, but that doesn't mean we have to. In fact, when we tolerate too much, we can actually have the opposite effect from what we want. If we allow too much, the other person will always fill that space and push that to the limit. As the saying goes, give an inch and they'll take a mile. The more you give, the more you can expect them to learn to depend on that and not grow for themselves. Below, there are several questions to help guide you through how to do this in a constructive way. Please wait to go through these when you're both in a calm and nice place and both ready to do this. If the conversation gets hurtful, simply let the other person know that. Stop the conversation and let them know you'll continue when they can be calm again. Thanks for joining us for this lesson. I'm sure your time means a lot to the person going through this. I want you to try to forget the usual meaning of cravings, where you might just think about cravings for a substance or whatever you're addicted to. Craving is much more general than that. We crave everything. We crave relationships, security, money, power, perfection, attention, all that good stuff. Craving is what helps us drive towards things. But the flip side is that craving anything is what turns a simple wanting of something into suffering. Did you catch that? Craving leads to suffering. One of the greatest gifts of knowledge that Buddha gave the world was the concept that the cause of suffering is really from our craving for pleasure. If someone wrongs us, that's actually all it is. It doesn't need to become a problem or anger or a feeling of being let down. Those feelings and responses only set in when we have a craving to be powerful and never be put down, or a craving to stay happy and never be upset. Every part of life you think of as unwanted and crave a change is another part of life in which you're imprisoned. Cravings are all weights that you carry, and that suffering is relieved the instant you put that weight down. We always battle with this craving to stay or get better at everything. Our looks, our desire to belong, our prestige, our health, our skills, our happiness, everything. It's from these cravings that the world can feel painful. Other words that might help describe the feeling I'm talking about are clinging, wanting, needing, seeking, desiring, attaching, controlling, longing for. Let's start to dive into this.